Hello lovelies, it is Valentine's Day, and I hope all over the country you're going to make like St. Valentine and cut up some goat hide and slap people around the face with it, because that's a thing that actually happened. Yeah, romantic. So today I'm going to do 2 book tags, and let's just get into them. Favourite couple ever? Well, I think it means literally, like I think it means sort of in a book, because these are book tags. I would have to say I don't envy anybody's relationship. The whole thing about books and literature is that in order to create a gripping book or a gripping tale, you have to bring in some conflict. So there's got to be a whole load of drama going on there, and that is something I don't need. So I love reading about it. I love reading about people's relationships in books, but there is not a relationship in a book that I actually envy, because, ladies and gentlemen, I like my life as it is. The only relationship that I've kind of seen from a literary background of late that I thought, yeah, maybe I quite like that, is the relationship that Hobgadling and Morpheus have in the Sandman comics, or the adaptation on Netflix. Is the fact that these 2 people, they meet up in the same pub every 100 years to kind of catch up on what's happened in their life during that time. There's a bit more to it than that. I mean, if you've seen the series or read the comic, I think you'd know. Basically, Morpheus, who is the Lord of Dreams, meets up with Hobgadling every 100 years to see if he is ready to die yet. And he never is. Spoiler alert, he never is. And I kind of feel like I would like a relationship like that. I would like a relationship with somebody who was kind of like your best mate, and every 100 years you met for a pint down the pub, or several, and just kind of caught up on everything that had happened over the last century. I think that would be a fairly phenomenal relationship to have, not least, of course, because it would make me immortal, which could be kind of good fun until the end of days when the sun explodes, and then maybe not so much. But yeah, I mean, that's the kind of relationship that I'm looking for. Yeah. Relationship that never happened but should have done. I don't think you can beat the classics for this kind of thing. I think for true unrequited love, you usually have to go back to the old school. Now, it took me a while to settle on one, but I think Eponine and Marius in Les Miserables. I mean, that is a very, very, very long book. I mean, it's about that big. It's about that big as a book. So there's a hell of a lot going on in there, but the musical was a lot shorter. But no, it's one of those enduring missed love opportunities, and I don't know if this is a spoiler or not, because everybody knows this story by now. Surely everybody knows this story by now. If you don't know this story, skippity skip ahead. But she takes a bullet for him. Eponine is absolutely in love with this guy who's a lot richer than she is, and he just sees her as a friend. And there's this whole song in the musical, there's this whole song. So yeah, it's like really sad, because she's singing this whole song about how, she loves him so much and he doesn't even know she exists. And they're just such a lovely couple, or they would have been. But the really fun thing is in the book, which you don't really find out in the movie, is Gavroche. So there's this little boy who kind of, he's the one who sings, You Better Run for Cover When the Pup Grows Up. Yeah, so I won't go into the whole story, but anyway, he is actually her younger brother. And you find that out in the book. They're both the Thénardier's children. But in the film, I don't think it's that clear. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think it's clear that Gavroche is actually her little brother. He's just like this kid who hangs around with the revolutionaries. So yeah, that one. Okay, my literary crush. Yeah, that's got to be Alicia Grease. Labyrinth of the Spirits by Carlos Ruiz Zafón. I don't know what it is. It's just the way he wrote her. Like the first time I read her, I wrote a review about it. I said, and hand on heart, I am hopelessly and devotedly in love with Alicia Grease. Christ, what a character. Just delightful. The imagery of the entire thing, but really she made it. I haven't enjoyed a character that much in a long time. I'll never look at a fountain pen the same way again. Yeah, if you know, you know. But what Alicia Grease can do with a fountain pen is that's kind of impressive. But yeah, she's sort of a bit of a tortured soul, but sharp, insightful. Yeah, no, I don't know. I really fell for that character. So yeah, that's my literary crush. Worst relationship. So a literary, I need to turn the light on, hold on. There we go, that's better. We've got some light. Yeah, so this is a book that, I don't know how to explain, but it's a book that just seemed very, very ordinary. And had no big highs and no big lows, just kind of a steady constant of a book that has lived in my head ever since I closed the last page. Stoner by John Williams. And it centres around the life of this English lecturer, this academic called William Stoner. I'm going to go with William Stoner. I think that's correct. And he ends up marrying this lady called Edith. And it was just the most draining relationship you've ever read. Not because it was violent, it wasn't violent. Not because they were really very abusive to each other. There was a little bit of mind gamery, mind fuckery going on there, but it wasn't that aggressive. It was just draining. It was like watching two sinks empty of water, you know, just like watching all of the joy of life disappear down the drain. They were not good for each other, and all the way through it you're screaming like, just get a divorce, go and live happy lives individually. Now, in the time that this was set, I think it was around the 50s, somewhere around there. But, you know, that was not something that was very easy to do. It wasn't impossible, but it wasn't easy. And, you know, it's kind of sad. Spoiler alert again. I'm sorry. I am just going to put this out there because I don't think that many people are probably reading it at the moment or are likely to read it immediately. And so if you do go and read it, you'll probably have forgotten what I'm about to tell you by the time that you get there. But he does end up having a little bit of a dalliance halfway through. He has a little bit of an affair with a woman who just lights up his world. And you're kind of thinking, well, you know, he doesn't leave his wife because he doesn't want to lose this wonderful relationship that he's got with his daughter. And his daughter's very young and they just have this lovely relationship and he doesn't want to screw that up by leaving. But he stays and loses that relationship anyway because he just becomes kind of a bit of a shell of himself. And Edith, his wife, uses the daughter against him, you know, and kind of drives a wedge between them anyway. So I think if, you know, it's on the line. And of course, with hindsight, you can see that. But in the moment, I guess he couldn't, but I wonder if he would have chosen differently if he knew that he would have lost that relationship anyway. Because if you're going to lose that relationship with your daughter anyway, you might as well have a happy life in other ways, you know. And I think it was just a cautionary tale to me, you know, because you can cling on to something for so long that's time you could both have been off finding happiness doing something else with somebody else, you know. And I'm not advocating that everybody should drop a relationship the minute things get hard, but it wasn't a fleeting instance of difficulty. It was years and years and years of slowly draining the joy out of each other, and you're just looking at the page going, for fuck's sake, just get a divorce. So yeah, that's my nightmare scenario relationship, like a slow death. My favourite love triangle, again, you've got to go back to the classics. You have to go back to the fundamentals with things like this. And I think one of the most enduring love triangles is Phantom of the Opera. I mean, you know, you can see it a little bit as well. I mean, it's the same story basically with Wuthering Heights. Is, you know, you've got this person, this woman torn between the light and the dark. So on the light side, I guess you've got Linton in Wuthering Heights and the Viscount de Charny in Phantom of the Opera. And then you've got Eric the Phantom and Heathcliff on the dark side. And it's that, those are the best kind of conundrums, you know, because it's so difficult because you never get a complex dark character who is boring, and you never seem to get a really kind of wholesome, wholehearted and lovely person who's really, really interesting. And I don't think that this is representative of life, because people are not like that. Everybody's got something interesting and something mundane about them, you know, and the fun of meeting people is figuring out, you know, what the interesting parts are and what the normal parts are and what the quirks are, and, you know, but when it comes to classic literature like Wuthering Heights and Phantom of the Opera, it's like a fairy tale. And in fairy tales, everybody is boiled down to a very two-dimensional black and white version of themselves. And so they become kind of archetypes, like the archetypal villain and the archetypal knight in shining armour, you know. And it's kind of, yeah, I like that. Is, you know, it's really difficult, isn't it? Because if you go with the light side in a story like that, in a fairy tale, if you're the good girl, then you get to live a lovely, happy, comfortable life. You know, your reputation is intact, your virginity glows, and, you know, you are the archetypal young princess, you know. Or you go the other way and, my God, it's going to destroy you. Like, your reputation will be shot. Nobody's going to want to know you. You're probably going to die in poverty in a drain somewhere. But my God, it's going to be interesting getting there. You know, I like those kind of conundrums, you know. It's like, you know what you should do, but you're probably not going to do that, you know. So I love stories like that. So yeah, the archetypal love triangle was Phantom of the Opera, and you know it's enduring because there's been like a dozen bloody movies about it and a West End stage musical. So, you know, it has appeal. Okay, the Romeo and Juliet moment where, you know, a love affair got cut tragically short. I know that this is for Booktube, but I'm actually gonna throw one of my own in there. I'm going to throw in The Children of Lear. Okay, so this was my rather long-winded retelling of an ancient Irish legend, whereby a wicked stepmother turns her stepchildren into swans for 900 years, and they have to, you know, bugger off and go and live in horrible conditions in freezing oceans. And it's a really kind of, it's a really famous old Irish legend, one of the three great tragedies of Ireland. And it's an enduring story that a lot of people are very drawn to, and I was very drawn to it because I feel like it had kind of like a vampiric pull. is we love vampire stories because, again, it's that love conundrum of, imagine that you were immortal, but the person that you love is mortal. Would you enter into that love affair knowing that at some point, not just your lover, but everybody you've known and cared for is going to die, and you're going to carry on? We're back to hobgaddling again. Are you ready to die yet? No? Okay, carry on. So that's what I kind of find enduring about the Children of Lear is, there are 4 children who outlive everybody that they've ever known. Not just everybody they've ever known, but their entire culture, their entire way of life. Everything they've ever known as an empire rises and falls, and they're still going. And anyway, in my telling, there's a little bit of a love affair in there that unfortunately gets interrupted by vicious stepmother's horrific curse. I won't blow the story. I won't blow the plot on it, but it's that one. I enjoyed writing it, and it's one that I still sometimes think about. Anyway, so if you want a tearjerker of a love story on that one, you might find that interesting. What book would I choose to be my Valentine? Well, if I can't have Alithia Grease, then there is one romance book that I like. Usually I don't go in big for romance books unless the romance is surrounded by a lot of death, gore, tragedy, drama. I'm kind of drawn to the dark stories. But there is one romance story, like literally a romance novel, that I quite like. It's my kind of it's not like a dirty secret read, but it makes me feel I don't know, it makes me feel strange to confess that there is a romance book that I like. Yeah, just because like growing up I was really into horror, really into sort of fantasy and things like that, and so I don't know, this one's a bit borderline Mills and Booney. But it's called Chloe by Freya North, and I think it was just so original. And it's not kind of girl meets boy, falls in love, forever. It's girl meets several boys and decides for herself what she's looking for. And it's at the same point she's travelling all around the British Isles, because basically I think is it her aunt or her grandmother dies, and leaves her a little bit of money and a note basically saying, get out of your house, you hate your job, you're not in a good relationship, just go and see some of the world and then decide what to do. And she does, and she makes the most of it. I like it. It's like a romance for gutsy women kind of thing. I like it. Also, she's got the most Welsh name in the world. I think it's Chloe Cadwallader. So it's just, I like the alliteration. Okay, second quick book tag. Be Mine, queer romance. All right. Well, I would naturally say The Binding, because it was just outstanding. But I bring this up in every single book tag, so we're all sick of hearing about that. So I'm sorry, Bridget Collins, I'm sorry. I'm going to put that over there. And I'm going to be original, and I'm going to say, I'm going to put myself forward on this one as well. Transgender love affair, one of the most fun books I ever wrote, Georgie. And basically I styled Georgie on everything that I ever thought was suave and sophisticated. And so it was a joy to write, because, every day I got up and I thought, I really want to be with this character. I really want to make this character live, and also there was so much drama going on. So I like that. I would say, if you're curious about this, it's been described as chick lit with balls. If you are interested in it, I would say give me a couple of months, because I'm currently going to re-release it with a much nicer cover, and also a little bit of a spit and polish, because it was written a very, very long time ago, and yeah, don't read the backlist. Never read the backlist. So wait a little bit, and I will make an announcement when it is fit to be seen in public again. But I really like that one. That one to me was fun. There are some dark moments in it. There's some very dark moments in it, but overall it's fun, and I think it's a really nice relationship at the end. And then a few days ago, I had an old friend from university drop me a line, and I hadn't heard from him in years. I mean, years and years and years. But I remember that years and years and years and years and years ago, he recommended a book to me, and I had also kind of forgotten about this until I heard from him again, and then it kind of came back because I associate the book so much with him. So the book is called Now and Then by William Corlett, and I think it's one of those books that very few people have ever heard of, but once read, never forgotten. It is heart-wrenching and funny, and just like pathos oozes from every page, and it's a guy recounting, I think it's semi-autobiographical, I'm not sure, I could be wrong, or at least creative non-fiction or something along those lines. It is a fictional novel, but I think there was a heavy influence from the author's life, probably, and basically he's recounting his life at private school, if you're American, or public school as we would call it in the UK, the place where very rich young boys go to learn to be rich young lords, and basically it's his life there, and recounting or looking back at a lot of difficult experiences he had, a lot of abuse he suffered, and sort of discovering himself, and also the greatest love affair of his life, and recounting it now as he is an older man looking back. Yeah, actually just thinking about it, that is a hell of a book. It's a hell of a book. It's a hell of a story. It's a hell of a relationship. It's a hell of a everything. So yeah, I that is a heck of a good book. A book that I'd like to go back and read again for the first time, probably The Binding, just because, you know, I very rarely go back and read anything a second time. I've reread this 3 times now, but, you know, it never quite hits the same as it did the very first time. You know, the first time around, you're like, oh, whew, you're feeling every beat for beat. Yeah, I just think it's a phenomenally written book. Like, every character, every part of it is excellent. And just the plot, you know, the characters shine, but the plot as an idea shines just as brightly. And I love it. So if I could forget that I'd ever read it and go back and read it again, I mean, I could, if I just leave it like 30 years, it will be like reading it again for the first time. But yeah, there are just there are some books that you just think, you know what, the very first time it hit, it was like, wow, that's something I could only ever aspire to, you know. Okay, I'm going to friend zone What Dreams May Come. It was a phenomenal movie. It was a phenomenal movie. I had issues with the book. I fully understand why it was as big as it was, but I think I might have talked about this in other book tags, but the reason I had issues with it is, so I think most people know the plot. Basically, it's two people very much in love. The guy dies tragically, and the woman survives, and the guy remains as a ghost close to her and watches the rest of his family's lives unfold after his death, whilst kind of figuring out what heaven is and what hell is and all of that. The reason I didn't end with it comfortably is, I'm not very religious. I don't believe in heaven and hell, and in this book, hell was what you did to yourself. And I'm gonna spoil this one. I'm sorry. I'm gonna spoil it. If you don't want to hear la 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 la, skippity skip until I stop talking. But basically, the wife decides she can't live without him, and so she kills herself. And instead of there being a gracious, all-loving, all-caring, empathetic, compassionate afterlife that picks her up and goes, oh, shit, that shouldn't have happened, I'm really sorry, hey, welcome to the afterlife, it's a lot better. She gets sent to hell, which is the prison of her own mind, where she's surrounded by spiders and darkness, and she's living in this rotting, dilapidated house as a punishment for having sent herself to a dark place in her own mind. And I just thought that was a really shitty concept. I don't know the guy's life. I've actually forgotten the author's name. I don't know what his experiences in life were, but it was almost like he'd written a book about punishing somebody he knew who maybe killed themselves, and I just thought, you know what? The film was a lot better. The film was really nice, it had a lot of nice things in it. But this idea that, because somebody was so overwhelmed by grief for losing the love of their life, that they should be punished for wanting to check out, it's like, yeah, this is crap. I'm sorry. Well-written novel. I get where he was going. Wasn't badly explained. Did not vibe with that as an idea at all. So, enemies to lovers. Books you didn't think that you were going to enjoy, that you did. Now, the one that I'm going to choose is called Flowers for Algernon. And it's not that I thought that I wouldn't like it. I was just a bit ambivalent, I think it was written in the 50s, and I knew that it was kind of a classic, like I don't know, the 50s a modern classic, I guess. So I knew that it was really well thought of. And I thought, well, hey, it's a classic, I should probably read it. It's on sale. And so I picked it up, and I have to say, I was expecting it to just be okay. I wasn't sure what it was about. I didn't really read the blurb. I'd only heard the title before, and I'd heard that it was well thought of. I think it had won quite a few awards. So I started reading it thinking, and by the end of it, I was like, mind blown. It was just brilliant. And I am going to tell you what the plot is, because that is not a secret, I don't think. I think that might be in the blurb. But basically, it's a guy with learning disabilities. So he's got a lower IQ score than average and some difficulties processing the world around him. If you've ever seen Derek with Ricky Gervais, very, very much like Derek. And then sort of there's a new treatment that's discovered that can make him not just as smart as everybody else, but smarter than everybody else. So like PhD level cognitive processing. And it kind of follows through that. So yeah, I think I just gave away the ending a bit there, is that the medication doesn't keep working. And it was just a fascinating exploration of how much of human happiness is related to intelligence and how much is related to our sense of self. And does our sense of self change if our intellectual abilities change? How much of the world around us do we process depending on our intellectual ability, and does it, you know, it's really hard to explain. It kind of basically, to me, boiled down to, what is the relationship between intelligence and happiness? Does intelligence make you happy? Does lack of intelligence make you miserable? Or can it make you content? You know, it's my goodness, it was a really surprising and very engaging and quite emotional story. So yeah, I mean, it was one of those books, I picked it up and I thought, nah. And by the end I was like, yeah. You know, yeah. So I see why it won all of those awards. All right, guys, that's the end of my Valentine's book tag. If you want to have a go at answering those questions, either in a video or in the comments below, I shall leave the questions in the video information. I'd love to hear your answers to this. And I hope that wherever you are happily loved up, or you've got a nice bottle of wine and some chocolates and something decent to watch on Netflix. And I shall see you in the next one.